Hey there, it's Louisa Tunner-Munson from Feel Good Astrology. Welcome. This is a bit of a pop-up session. I was asked a question by somebody in my community about the chances of the internet going down, and I thought I'd explore it. I was just going to do it privately, and I thought, no, let's like put this out there. Let's be a bit, controversial, maybe. Who knows? So I'm going to be a bit experimental with my astrology, and actually, this is how I use astrology with my clients. So, for instance, on a monthly basis, when I'm working with my clients, I'll ask them what's going on, what situations do you want me to look at? And, based on what they tell me, I will sometimes look for named asteroids that represent the things. So it's almost like I'm building a picture. I've got the planets, I've got the charts, and then I throw in these little asteroids just to see where they land and just to get a real feel for what's going on. And that's what I'm going to do with this question. So the question I got was, will the internet go down as NASA implies? Now, before I start that, I just want to welcome anyone that's watching. I can see I've got some people watching. Feel free to pop some comments, put your views in the chat room. I'd love to hear what you think about this, because if it's true that the internet might go down as NASA implies, then it could affect all of us. And I'd really love to know, what contingency you might have, etc., etc. So let's have a look at the charts. Actually, before I look at the charts, let me just bring up the question in that came up for me. So, okie dokes. So, will the internet or the web go down this year? So that was the question that came to me. I'm just moving it along. So yeah, internet outage by Latifa, and she's saying, "Hi, Louisa." And every good astrologist here are so sweet, because there's quite a few great knowledgeable people in the community. I'd like to ask you, please, if you could check about a rumor of global internet outage due to a severe solar storm, saying that NASA has issued a warning suggesting a solar storm may be about to knock the entire internet offline. Could there be any indication in the Earth chart for the coming months or years? If you can make a video about it, it'd be great. Besides this negative rumors, there are good ones about the Schumann resonance proved a shifting into higher frequency. If you could say anything about this as well. Thank you. Yes, very, very happy to talk about that. I'm not an expert at it, but I will use my intuition and also explore some of these rumors. Now, if you want to ask a question, by the way, or be part of the community, you can do it. It's a free community. Just go to this address. So it's www.school.com. It's school, SKOOL.com/feel good astrology 1573. That is actually going to become Feel Good Astrology, one word. So stay tuned for that. So anyway, before I actually dive into it, it's interesting because, Latifa mentioned the rumors about the internet going down. And I'm quite curious as to what you think about this, because I think there's lots of rumors that come up. I think the media works very well with big business and with governments, and they start to seed the consciousness of the people. So I I actually always think, when something is being spoken about, I always check to see if there are other rumors collaborating the story. For instance, there's been quite a sharp increase in myocarditis and pericarditis. And like friends of friends and friends of my clients, people I know have got different heart problems that have just suddenly come out of nowhere, all under the age of 50, which is unusual, right? And it's happened in the last 18 months. And what has the media done? Well, it's sown lots and lots of different stories or narratives about how the sudden emergence of myocarditis and pericarditis is really, really normal. So, for instance, you might have, I've done a bit of a deep dive on these, not on video, but for instance, you have one news outlet reporting that if you shake your duvet cover too hard, you might give yourself a heart attack. Opening your tax bill, opening your electricity bill, heavy gardening, all sorts of things. They're trying to normalize that. And so I always think when there is the start of a story coming in the media, you'll see it being seeded by lots of different agents of the media. And likewise, we do here as well. So, for instance, there's a couple about the solar storm, or the idea of solar storms and internet apocalypse. Interesting that they've used the term internet apocalypse. So there's some stories here. The actual article that Latifa sent me directly was from, I think, something called History of Yesterday.com. And it says, quite interestingly here, it lists a whole load of other things that might occur that would bring that about. So the internet relies on a vast network of physical infrastructure, including undersea cables, data centers, and satellite systems to function seamlessly. So it talks very much about the internet's infrastructure, mentioning directly undersea cables, natural disasters. They're susceptible to earthquakes, tsunamis, and also human activities such as ship anchorages, and severe disruption to these cables could result in a significant loss of internet connectivity. Well, it's interesting. If we think about the Nord Stream piping that came a cropper last year. Was it last year or this year? I can't even remember now. You know, it's undersea. It looks like it should be okay. And then that goes down. It also does mention the fact that it could be sophisticated hackers or state-sponsored actors could launch a large-scale attack on the internet. Now, it's interesting. I actually think this article might have a bit more truth to it. Sure, solar storms is definitely a possibility. Now, I do actually follow the Schumann resonance quite a bit, and definitely in these last 2 weeks, it's gone really quite crazy. So we're like, the people who watch the Schumann resonance, they are always tracking the level of the Schumann resonance and the changes in it, and it has these moments where it kind of blacks out almost. A bit like if you get suddenly overwhelmed and all of a sudden you can't concentrate on anything and you almost have to faint. It's almost as if the Schumann resonance faints every now and again. Oh my goodness, it's like this sudden burst of energy. Now, very recently, the Schumann resonance has also had what looks like light codes. When you see it on the screen, it looks like a pretty network of sacred geometry. It looks like light codes coming in. And I'm going to leave this for you really to decide what you think actually does go on. I'm just going to take this off screen now because, what are your belief systems? As I'm answering this question, the first thing you might say, well, NASA, it's a bunch of old it's a bunch of malarkey, using Biden's terms. What a load of malarkey. Some people are absolute NASA fans, believe in the science. Absolutely, the NASA narrative is absolutely watertight. Then there are also people that think actually NASA is really not watertight at all. And when you actually bear down onto some of the stories that they've come up with, some of the maps, the way they've re-imaged, i.e. created maps of different planets and things, and in particular the map of planet Earth, or the standard globe picture, there are lots of inconsistencies when you look at the size of continents and weather patterns. You'll see where people have actually copied and pasted cloud formations, and people who are able to look at images and see where they've been edited, like proper photo I don't know what they're called. People who, like proper graphic designers or graphic investigators, have been able to pull apart these NASA images and see that a lot of the images that they're putting up are actually created. So it's a whole interesting thing. NASA, is it true or false, whatever. Then we've also got the whole idea of ascension, awakening, and all that kind of jazz, looking at the Schumann resonance and the raising of vibrations. Personally, I do think there is a vibrational raise, that it does feel like the frequency is changing. I notice very much in my clients that at times when there are heavy like a real time of density around the solar storms. People get very worn out, very ill, and kind of clumsy. Also, during these kind of fainting periods of the Schumann resonance, where everything seems to black out or white out, even that there are these moments of exhaustion, but also inspiration, and that we feel like there is a clearing. Can all these realities exist at the same time is another question. So this isn't strictly astrology. This is just me being a bit of a crazy hippie. And as you can see, I've been in the sun recently. It's summer season here in Portugal, hence my short sleeves. So I'm feeling kind of uplifted and a bit relaxed. So please forgive me. Now let's bring on the charts. So I'm being a bit sort of investigational with this. I'm not assuming that if the internet goes down, that it is an asteroid. I'm not assuming that it's a solar flare, as NASA is reporting. The fact that it's already been sewn into the media that it could have something to do with undersea cables is fascinating. That it could be because of hackers interests me. What also interests me is connecting the dots, as any astrologer does, that we connect aspects between planets. And so we're always looking at planets and looking at those connections. I'm doing this with news right now. What other themes are going on right now as the world media is starting to talk about the potential of an internet down, an internet blackout? What other things are going on? Well, there has been this consistent theme of resetting. There is also a consistent idea that's coming out now. It's slowly coming in. Lots of people 3 years ago, myself included, were saying about 3 years ago, there's going to be a push for digital currency, like a one world digital currency, a digital passport, related to your social credit scoring, like they have in China. Also, the idea of medical history captured within it. So, and also the idea of a some would say a utopia, others would say a living hell. The whole idea of a one world brought together with the mechanisms to keep it together. Now, what would need to occur for that kind of level of control to take place? And what stands in the way of a level of control? Well, the internet's one of those things, because the internet is a medium for us to share ideas and to talk very openly without censorship. That's, by the way, why I've got my community where I can actually talk, because it's fact checker free, by the way. But the internet offers us the opportunity to connect over different continents, in different time zones, in different languages. We can connect, we can share what's going on for us in real time. Now, that could really put the spanner in the works for anyone that wanted to bring about a level of conformity and control, where there is one narrative that is sown and nobody else is able to check and verify. So I can definitely see some motives arising. Not laying any blame at all, but I am connecting dots. And that's what it is to be an astrologer, is to not just look at the question, like the question, will the internet go down, as NASA implies? They're implying solar storm. I'm looking at it from the perspective of, if it goes down, why might it go down, and what's the bigger story? So let's have a look now. Bit of a long introduction, but anyway, let's share a different screen. One sec, and I'm just going to bring up two slides. Now, I don't really see this as getting definitive information, because I really don't like to talk in definitive ways. I think the more important way of looking at things is to just keep our minds open. And one thing that I'm going to have to close a couple of pages down. One thing that I really use astrology for, it's not to give definite answers. I think astrology is a tool best used to give us choice, because if we've got choice, then we can make our own decisions. And so from my perspective, astrology is a tool best used to give us freedom and to give us choice, to give us a sense of foresight, so we can get prepared if we need to. I can see I've got some comments coming in. We've got a good afternoon from Owen Lloyd Martin. Hey, Owen, how you doing, buddy? Um, I've got Manful Baloda Chowdhury, hello, saying, hello, add me on a call, please. I can't right now. I don't actually have that set up at the moment, I'm afraid. But write some things that you want to know and feel free to join my community as well, because if you've got something that you'd like to share or explore, I'm really, really happy to do that at some point. Very happy. And I'm just putting my community details into the comments. Owen saying, not my kind of living. I think he's referring to the whole idea of a one world management system. Manfor is saying, have me on call, please. I can't. Okay, right. Let's have a look at this chart. Yeah, Manfor, another time. All you need to do is get in touch with me via my community. There's an email function, and I'm very, very happy to talk there. And if necessary, get you on a show. Let's see what happens and where this goes. So the moment I got this question, which was yesterday, the 27th of June, 2023, at the time 3:40 p.m. In Portugal, where I live, that's what I set the chart for. You know, basically, when the question comes to me, that's the moment I think of the question as originating from. Now you'll see here I've got the planets and some other astronomical bodies. I've got Ceres, which is a dwarf planet. I've got Mars, Pallas Athena. I've got Lilith here. And you'll see some other things. So at the top, it gets a little bit squashed. I've put in asteroid money. Can't remember why I put that in. Put in NASA. I also put in asteroid Oceana to represent the underground cabling. Now, I could have put in lots of different asteroids. There's probably an asteroid cable, or there isn't an undersea or sea, but I went for Oceana. I also put in asteroid EMP. That's something else I haven't mentioned, but you know, cyber terrorists, if they wanted to, they could let off an EMP, which is an electromagnetic pulse, and take out all of our electricity, which would immediately stop the internet for us. I've also put in asteroid Lie, just because I like to put that in sometimes. I put in asteroid Black to represent the whole idea of a blackout. And I've also put in asteroid Web. Now, this is just me being playful and investigative. I always think stories emerge. And, you know, sometimes you just need a few tools. Like we've got these little story blocks. And I saw you know, someone playing with these little cubes, like little dice with little pictures on, and you can roll them around and throw a few, and then whatever picture comes up, you make a story out of it. It's a little bit like that, and it's a form of divination, I guess. It's a different form of astrological divination. So first thing that I notice is whatever happens is going to be managed very diplomatically. So it all looks very nice and shiny on the outside as if nothing's happening. That's if. I always, like, one of the things I always look at is what is the ruling, like what is the planetary ruler? So the ascendant for this chart is in the sign of Libra. That's ruled by Venus. And one of the things I always consider that is that if the moon and the ruler are connected in some way through a planetary aspect, that usually shows a yes. And I can see here that the moon is actually in a sextile to Venus. So they are definitely connected. And Venus being the ruling planet might describe a little bit more of if it goes down, which it sounds like it may well do, and the fact that the media are already describing it as that it's about to go down. To me, that's an indication it is likely to happen. They're sowing the seeds for it in the populace. But it's in a conjunction with asteroid Money, and also in a conjunction with asteroid Lilith. Now, Lilith's an interesting character because Lilith shows where we've been repressed, or and where we're starting to get angry about being repressed. And it shows this kind of righteous anger. She's also in a conjunction with Mars at 22 degrees, all in the sign of Leo. Leo's a sign about sovereignty and personal power and being the king of your own castle, not being like the king of the world. You know, it's about us all being in our own space. Venus is also here in the sign of Leo. The midheavens also in the sign of Leo. I really see this as people are starting to get a little bit too empowered. People are starting to want to have a say about things. And so if it was to be taken down or deliberately taken down or accidentally, I mean, we can have a look at the sun as well and see how that plays into it. But anyway, Venus is implying that it has something to do with money. And from that, I would also assume control. Now, where I was mentioning about the whole idea that there is a reset at some point, I would imagine that Pluto down here is the biggest antagonist about this. He's, or protagonist actually. Pluto is the person that shows where things, how things are controlled, and where power will go to any lengths to control itself and to control the things it wants to control. Now, before I go any further, let's just see if there's any more comments. No, there's not. Okay. So the moon is also in a square with Pluto. So to me, it does feel like there is almost like a whiplash effect, that we need control. We need it now. When I see this Pluto square the moon, I'm thinking a big old hissy fit is going on at some level. It's like, no, we're losing control. I must do something to get it back. And then Pluto is in this opposition to Oceana, which is fascinating. It's almost like, I need to control. Where's those flipping undersea cables? It's that kind of energy going on. This is also interesting. Asteroid Webb, to represent the web in a conjunction with Saturn. Well, that's also interesting because Saturn is the planet of rings. And how are we controlling everything? Well, if you think of the planet is actually surrounded or imprisoned in rings. Saturn at its best shows us how we can be responsible, how we can be supportive, have a really good structure. Now Saturn is implying, like, its proximity to Asteroid Webb it is suggesting to me that there is this feeling that the web is uncontrollable and possibly unstable. And so somebody might just want to kind of take it down, re-upload it in a new way that creates these fail safes. Now, when you think about censorship that's come up in recent times, I heard Ireland had changed some of their rules recently, that if you spoke openly about something, you could be arrested for it. I can't remember what the particular hot topic was. It was either the trans narrative or COVID. I can't remember which one, but there was this very strong reaction, like a whiplash reaction. If you dare mention this, I'm going to ground you, that kind of energy. And Canada has obviously been going on about this for quite some time and is starting to get quite penal in its approach. So yeah, it's a lot of sort of wagging fingers. It almost feels like the web will be made safe for the benefit of us all. Now, will this actually happen? I don't know. Is it happening so that we can see what's going on? And interestingly, in one of these articles, it mentioned, how will we survive the internet going down? And it is trying to sow panic, as far as I can see. Ultimately, we will survive. And our lives would change without the internet. A lot would change because obviously money has gone online, insurance, all our bills and technology has gone online. Lots of people use the online. I mean, obviously my work would change too. I wouldn't be able to work as easily as I can right now, working with people internationally around the world, receiving money via the net. It would completely change my life in a way that could be quite negative. I won't, mince my words there. However, would I survive it? Of course I would, because we lived without the internet for many years, and it's only really in the last 15 that it's just exponentially growing and growing and growing. So yeah, there is this. Now, Saturn and the web are also, this is interesting as well, connected in a trine to Mercury, and also EMP, like the idea of a physical taking down of the grids, like the electricity, our power supplies. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting. Um, what this is suggesting to me, I mean, okay, I've put in lots of different scenarios. Like, could it be ocean? Could it be an attack in the ocean? Could it be, the electricity goes down? Whatever. Um, the fact is, to me, it looks like this actually has quite a few different scenarios. The sun here, in the ninth house, in the sign of Cancer, it's not really connected so closely as like Mercury is in a conjunction with EMP, the idea of like taking out the electricity grid, the electrical grids in different places. That seems a lot more tight, a lot more dynamic, and Mercury moves really fast and can change. It could be, there could be a plan for something like that, which could also change. It may not happen. Seeing money and Venus together, so tight together, to me is implying, well, there is somebody over here that has money and wants control, that doesn't quite like how free the internet is. Then there might be somebody over here that is trying to reset, that thinks the internet should be safer, and so let's take it down so we can re-upload. There's also black that I put in to represent the whole idea of a blackout. Well, yeah, that's touching Vesta. Vesta is to do with what we know in our hearts to be true or needed. Like Vesta is our core desire, our core dream, which brings me to another point, actually. I'm just going to take this off screen for a second and welcome a couple of other people, because I can also see Zoe Kelly's Universe is watching. Zoe, so lovely to have you back, my darling. How are you? Mwah. How's it going over in Florida, isn't it? Is it nice and warm there? And Owen is saying we need to talk to each other more. Yeah, definitely, Owen. We so do. But Zoe's saying, my buddy's totally convinced Jasara is coming. I don't see it. Do you? Do you know what, Zoe? This would feed in perfectly, because this is something else I haven't mentioned, which is, that's why I put in asteroid money. Oh my goodness, that's why. Yes, well, a lot of different places right now. There's lots of reports about money and the control of money, because obviously if you want to control the planet, you want to be able to control the money. And for many years, we've been running on a fiat system, which is basically based on fresh air. Countries have been printing off their own currency, which reminds me of something. Talking about undersea attacks and undersea cables, current sea, like the whole word currency, about liquidity. The finance is absolutely full of references to the sea, which brings me on to a whole new subject, and we'll do another day. Maybe I'll have Owen to help me with that, where when we might talk about how there is maritime law. But anyway, money. The world governments, as they have been colluding, we all know that they've been canoodling and like whispering in each other's ears and doing stuff in secret, like the Bilderberg groups and things like Builder Bear groups, as I like to call them, and the WEF and the UN. They've all been colluding and working together with Big Pharma. It's quite obvious now. When we look at the handling of COVID, the phenomenon. But anyway, money would really sort things out. And there's a few different things that I've seen. So there are people talking about Jasara, the whole idea of the people being paid back their money. And it talks about the straw man, which you may or may not know about, which is a whole new deep dive rabbit hole. So there's this whole idea that there is money that has been used by governments in secret programs, but it's money that has been funneled away from actual real living people via taxes and via other means. And so there is this whole idea that money might be paid back and given back to people. So the taxes that have been taken illegally, some would say that taxation is theft anyway, but that the money would be returned to the people, and that it would also be filtered out in such a way that we could start to rebuild our world according to what we all decide. So that's one idea. And I heard, I obviously haven't seen any documents about it, but I did hear that Jasara was about to be brought in right before 9/11, Don't know that for sure. But yeah, lots of people talk about the whole idea of a giving back of money, like a debt relief, like we're going into a jubilee year, like the whole idea of some form of financial relief. Then there's other people, and there are odd news articles talking about the central bank digital currencies, the idea of all currencies now being digital and getting rid of all cash. And to access your cash, that you might need a phone with a chip in. You might need a chip, for final iterations, where you got a chip in your hand, you put your hand up to pay, all those kinds of plans. So I do see that if you were to launch a new currency or completely restart with currency, you might want to have a fresh, clean slate around the world with the internet, because the internet is the it's the straw that could break the global WEF agendas back. But also, it's this is almost like Star Wars. There's the idea of white hats and black hats, and there's the idea that there are people out to destroy us, and then there's this idea there are people out there to save us. Where I'm coming from right now is it's up to us to work through all these different stories, be aware of them all, and to feel our way through, which may sound like a load of old hippie shit, but we are only responsible for ourselves. And I absolutely believe that we should, once once we've tuned into who we are, we need to start vibrating that out and start living as if we're sovereign beings. So, you know, if there was this faction of good that's here to help us along, then taking the internet out in one particular way and then restarting it with some fixes in may be something that they see as being desirable. Similarly, if you want to take over the world and control it and control the money and control the whereabouts, very much like the 15-minute cities, and let that spread, taking the internet out would be really, really useful. So that's one of the reasons why the whole solar flare phenomenon that people, that NASA apparently spoke about, just seems more and more unlikely to me. But the timing of it is very interesting because, it appears that there are lots of different people that could benefit from taking out the internet, stopping humanity for a few moments, and then restarting again. Now, on a personal level, when I look at this and when I tune into this, and Owen is also saying BRICS is coming, no more Federal Reserve. Yeah, and I've been following that as well. And yeah, like so many countries are getting together now, and they are kind of coming together in their own non-fiat currency way. So they're using gold-backed currency, real currency that actually exists, and they're working together, which would help which would help us actually retain where we are and not need to lose everything. So yeah, I mean, there's lots and lots of different theories. Here's where I really think we should be, or not should be, but this is how I see it. When I've been talking to my clients in recent times, and in fact, to most people, like out and about, people are feeling so wound up, so exhausted, like we've been running around this hamster wheel super fast for too long, way too long. And people are almost feeling like they could just pass out with the sort of like metaphysical feeling that's going on for them. Pretty sure you guys watching here will be saying the same thing. Yeah, flipping heck, I just want to sleep for a year. Or when I first thought, oh, the internet could go, do you know what my immediate thought was? Not, oh my God, I'm going to lose my business and therefore not be able to feed my kids or something. I thought, flipping heck, I could have a holiday I could have 2 weeks just to like really relax for a bit. But of course, if we're all feeling it, or if lots and lots of people are starting to feel this sense of it can't go any faster anymore, like our bodies are starting to wear and tear, our bodies are starting to feel that tension of being pushed. What happens when you get pushed too far? Something breaks. And so I really feel that right now, people are doing this on a very real level. People are really feeling this pushing. The amount of people that are healing right now is incredible, and the level that people are going to in their own healing. I've been able to release a few things that I've held with me for years, just in the last couple of months, and it's been exhausting. But stuff is coming up. It's like all of our shadows are coming out into the light, and as they come up, we can transform them and we can let them go, which is the other side to Pluto. And of course, Pluto is, if I just go back to that chart again, Pluto is right here. Pluto is the grand controller. Now, there are some people who, like, if we were to come out of the situation, like keep zoning out and out and out and out, looking down on Earth, everything that's going on Earth right now would look like minuscule, and we would just float away and feel quite unattached. But right now, while we're in it, it just feels so dire at times. But we're all playing with the same energy, and that is, how can we control our lives? How can we feel better? We're realizing that where we're trying to control our lives, it's probably killing us at some level. And then there are these feelings of controls coming in. So if anything, I think this whole question is actually about, like, what's controlling me and how do I free myself from it? How do I feel free? I saw a comment coming from Owen, and then I'm just going to move on to something else. I'm going to have a look at different chart. So Owen is sharing 3 major concerned cities should go. Interesting, because people think that these are just part of countries, you know, Washington, DC, the City of London, and the Vatican, but they're actually individual municipalities with their own set of rules, their own set of laws, their own jurisdiction. So whilst you think, like, when you're traveling through the City of London, that it's all part of the UK, that's not true. It rules itself, just like Washington DC does, and the Vatican. And you know, the City of London, I believe, is the and Owen, you can correct me on this. The Vatican is obviously about religion. The City of London, is it about royalty, and Washington DC money, or is the City of London about money? I can't remember what Washington DC is, but it's like the different sides of the controls in different parts of the world. But yes, I would not be overly disturbed to see some deep diving going on in those places of DC, the city, and Vatican. Doug is saying, interesting thinking here, Louisa. Hi, Doug. Glad you're with me. And yeah, Zoe saying China is DC. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, that is that seems to be all very like compact. They're working very nicely together. So anyway, this is kind of like, I'm kind of like part conspiracy theorist, or like alternative thinker, part astrologer, and also just an individual that wants to feel a sense of freedom. So this next chart I'm just going to have a look at, it's my last chart. And it was because the person that asked me the question, Latifa, she did also ask, what is the Earth chart like? And I didn't exactly know what she meant by that. But in the spirit of zooming out, this chart is what's known as a heliocentric chart. So the previous chart that I showed is a geocentric chart. So essentially, like, this is Earth in the middle here. And we're assuming that all of these planets around the outside are circling the Earth from our perspective. So it has the Earth at the middle. This other chart is a heliocentric chart. It has the sun in the middle. So this is the sun, and this is everything around the sun. So it's a completely different type of chart. You'll notice it doesn't have like, here we've got these 4 angles, which are like the north, south, east, and west of astrology. This is based on the time, place, and date of birth on Earth. And obviously, the heliocentric chart doesn't show that, because we're looking at it from the sun's perspective. And you'll notice this new symbol here. which you probably haven't seen before unless you've looked at heliocentric charts. This is the symbol for Earth. This is a symbol for planet Earth. And as you can see, it's in a conjunction with the moon. Now, why would that be? Because the moon is so close to the sun, to Earth, that from the sun's perspective, they're in pretty much the same place. So that's why they're together. Now, when you're looking from the perspective of the sun, if we were looking at how Earth is looking from the sun at this time and place and date, it changes things ever so slightly. First of all, it looks like right now, from the sun's perspective, that we're going through a Capricorn phase. That the Earth is in the sign of Capricorn right now, from the sun's perspective. And so that's showing that whatever's going on right now has to do with big business and to do with money and to do with insurance and to do with medicals, basically to do with anything that is official and kind of big brother, and not so much about us doing things personally. It also shows that we're on a bit of a climb. Like, the whole symbolism of Capricorn is very much that you're climbing this steep mountain, and that there's a very ambitious plan going on planet Earth. Jupiter is in a trine with the Earth, and so from the sun's perspective, it really does look like, Earth is actually doing quite well. It's got quite a hard path at the moment, but it is actually working with a bit of hope and faith behind it, as if there might be a plan. Is there a plan? Is it God's plan? Is it the plan that we've all been creating ourselves just through, our hearts and our intentions? Like, my intention my whole life has been, I just want to feel free. And is it that in the last 3 years, with what's happened, more and more people are saying, I want freedom, I want freedom, I want freedom. Or has this been going on all of our lifetimes? Has there been a plan in play? Who knows? The sun, as it's looking at Earth, is also noticing that Saturn and the Earth are in a resonance as well, and Saturn and Jupiter are in a resonance. To me, that's like we're taking little steps forward, and that every time we move forwards, we also need to make sure we've got something to back us up, that we are that we're not running off into the future without checking what's there. I do think we need to use a bit more wisdom and foresight. I think all of us blindly just rolling up our sleeves and saying, give me what you got, Ted Ross, is not necessarily the wisest course of action, even though he's making moves to normalize one idea for the whole wide world. So that's kind of interesting as well. In terms, and just using the asteroids, which kind of almost don't matter from the sun's perspective, because the sun doesn't really care what happens on planet Earth. If we were to kind of flip all the perceptions around, it doesn't really matter if there's some kind of big lie or a big blackout or anything. But seeing as I've got these asteroids in here, Pluto in a trine to lie and in a trine to blackout, it's almost as if they're saying, yeah, there's this blackout and it's a lie, but everyone there can't see it. And if there was a blackout right now, I don't even know if I would ever find out who was really behind it. It's like a whodunit of like a massive magnitude, like who did it, who's responsible. So who knows? And interesting that like NASA and money are also looking like they're in the same place from the sun's perspective right now. So anyway, I think I've kind of had a sort of like personal rant and a bit of fun with that. So yeah, let's just see some final comments, and then I'm just going to call it quits and get on with my other readings. So Owen is saying, City of London money, Vatican religion, Washington war. That's interesting, because war, as my understanding is that war is really an instrument to make money, create money as well. Like, when the government coffers are a little bit low, it's a fantastic way of creating a lot of industry. And there's lots of other benefits to those that cause war. Um, and also there's a lot of loss, which obviously I'm not here to sort of regale or celebrate. Douglas is saying nice to be here. You're so welcome. And Owen is saying hi, Douglas. Hope all is well with you, my friend. Yeah, Dougie, it's great that you've recovered. I mean, Doug, you are like somebody who's been through a bit of a Pluto thing. Actually, it'd be interesting to see your personal chart, because I know you've been through quite a dramatic time, creating quite a lot of change. And Pluto does that. Pluto kind of hits us, and then all of a sudden we have to start over in a new way. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Like I said, this was just me messing around, answering a query for somebody, and having a bit of fun with it, and kind of just showing the sort of astrological way of thinking. Well, my sort of intuitive astrology, which is to be playful and to put in different colors, shapes, or words, and see what comes up. So anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope this is useful, and leave me some comments. And maybe we'll have another conspiracy hour next week. Maybe I'll answer one weird and wacky question each week. Who knows? But anyway, lots of love. Be sovereign and take care. Bye for now.